We should hopefully at this point be reasonably confident in dividing beats up into smaller pieces. Imagine we had a beat that lasted in time from this point in time to this point in time. I'm just going to draw a line here. So this is the length of the beat. And if this is one beat in length, you'll remember that we call this a quarter note, as a quarter note lasts for one beat. If I was to change the colour of my pen so we can see the difference, and I was to split this up into two equal, they're going to try and be equal, they may not actually be equal as I draw it here, divide this period of time, which we've said is one beat, into two equal chunks, we're going to call this an eighth note. Pretty straightforward so far. And if I was to change my colour again, this time we'll pick a nice blue, and we would divide the same period of time up into four equal chunks. So we've taken this beat and we've divided it up into four. We would probably call those 16th notes. I think it'd be a good idea just to remind ourselves of what these different things might sound like. So imagine if we had a beat that went something like 1, 2, 3, 4, or beat, 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 beat. First of all, I'm going to play notes that just fill in the whole space in between each of the beats, and those would be quarter notes. They'll sound like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You'll hear there that the sound completely filled each of the beats, and I played the note again every time I said a number. If I was to play something that split the beat up in this way, where we were trying to play two equal notes for every beat, it would sound like this, and these would be eighth notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you'll hear there that I managed to play 8 notes because I played 4 beats. Each of those split up twice, so 2 times 4 is 8. So we've got 8 notes there. And that's the reason why we call them eighth notes, because if we have a normal 4/4 bar, 4 beats in a bar, then if we were playing eighth notes, we're going to play 8 of those in that bar, or that measure if we use the American terminology. Moving on, if we were to play 16th notes, we're going to need to fit 16 notes into that 4-beat period. Let's have a go at that now. I'll count myself in. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you wanted to go back and count that, hopefully there would be 16 there. Everything we've done so far has been to divide the beat up into an even number of pieces. Here we were dividing our beat up into 2 pieces, and here we were dividing our beat up into 4 pieces. My question for today would be, well, what if we want to do something a little bit different? What if we want to split our beat up into 3 equal pieces? Somewhere in between. So the pieces will be slightly smaller than when we were dividing it up into 2 pieces or eighth notes, and they'll be slightly bigger than when we were dividing our beat up into 4 pieces or 16th notes. It might look something like this. So what do we call it when we split our beat up into 3 equal pieces? Well, that is known as a triplet, and it's probably one of the most interesting parts of rhythm when we learn about music, because it gives us just another tool in our toolbox that means we can make our rhythms more exciting. We should probably have a listen to what a triplet would sound like, so I'm going to play that to you now. In just the same way, I'm going to count myself in up to 4, and then I'm going to play these triplet notes, and they're going to fit in between each of the beats, and there should be 3 of them between each of the numbers that I count. So let's have a go at that. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And hopefully you would hear that we had 4 times 3, 4 beats, and 3 notes per beat will give us 12. So we could call this a 12th note, but we don't. We call it a triplet. And the reason for that is that a good way of thinking about it really is that we're taking our 8th note, where we would normally fit 2 notes into the space of 1 beat, and we're just making each piece slightly smaller so that we can fit another one in, and we can fit in 3, and we call that a triplet. So instead of calling this a 12th note, we don't talk about 12th notes, we would call this length of note a triplet 8th note. The important thing to remember about triplets, and actually they're really easy to deal with once we've got this in our heads, is that we're trying to fit in 3 of that particular note in the space that would normally take up 2. So you'll remember that we originally were dividing our beat up into 2 equal chunks, and that was called an 8th note. And then what we did was we tried to fit 3 notes into the same space, and they would be triplet 8th notes. And the difference will be like this. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a... And we can even mix them up. 1 and 2 and a 3 and 4 and a 1 and a 2 and 3 and a 4 and I hope you'll hear there that we can bring out some really interesting rhythms once we start to play with whether we're putting in 2 notes per beat or 3 notes per beat. One thing we can do that's really interesting and is a central element of so much music, particularly jazz music and blues music, is to do something interesting with our triplet 8th notes. Imagine we were to take our triplet 8th notes. Here they are. So here's 3 notes fitting absolutely in between 2 beats. They sound like this. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1, 2, 3, 4. Imagine if we were to do something a little bit interesting by taking the first 2 and connecting them together so that we have 1 note at the beginning that takes up the first 2 of our triplet 8th notes, and then a third here at the end that takes up just 1/3 of our beat. What have we done here? Well, we've basically said we're going to have 1 note that takes 2/3 of the beat and 1 note that takes 1/3 of the beat, and so it'll sound sort of lopsided because 1/2 of the beat will be longer than the other half. It's not like the 8th notes here where we're dividing the beat into 2, but they're completely equal. What we're doing here is dividing the beat into 2, but we're doing this bit, we're making this bit twice as long as this bit. And it sounds a bit like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm sure we'll come back to this in a lot more detail in a future video, but so you know, and so you'll know what people are talking about when they talk about jazz quavers or jazz eighths. This is what they mean. So straight eighths are these, where we're just simply dividing each beat up into 2 equal parts. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... With the jazz eighths or the swing eighths, there's lots of names for them, but they're almost always associated with jazz, blues, lots of American styles of music. We tend to divide the beat up in this slightly more irregular way, with a longer first note and a shorter second note, which sounds like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and hopefully now you've got that sound firmly stuck in your head. I'm going to finish this video by playing you a bit of jazz using lots of jazz eighth rhythms. Hopefully you'll be able to spot some.